pas les jambes. Okay. Laissez aller comme ça là. Vas-y, vas-y, vas-y. Vas-y, vas-y, vas-y. Reste bien comme ça. Là, droit. Envoie un tout petit peu là. De l'autre côté. Non, comme tu faisais.
Là, je peux pas. Oui, je vais
Là, droit.
Ça passe, c'est bien normal. Non, mais là, le problème, c'est qu'il ne peut pas monter.
Envoie encore. Hop. Vas-y. Comme ça. Hop. T'es où là? Envoie le cul là-bas. Envoie le cul là-bas.
Non, non, non.
Droit. Vas-y. Vas-y, laisse aller.
There was a lot of tension relieved once we finally saw the car arrive to the track in Barcelona. There was so many things that could have gone wrong and so many other paths that could have occurred, and then it finally showed up. As it turned out, there was not enough GT3 Aston Martins around the world to do all the races, so our team ended up helping another team by sharing our car for a race that occurred the day before Barcelona, all the way at Paul Ricard, so it was all the way at the south of France. Luckily, the team did great. The car was in good shape, and once it finished that race, they then began to do the transformation from all the requirements from one series to the next, getting our livery onto the car, the old team's livery off, and then on a truck and heading to Barcelona. So that all happened from the course of Sunday's race finishing at 5 o'clock to our first on-track session in Barcelona Monday at 7 a.m. Pretty crazy. This was my first race, not with RSL, but within the ELMS, so there was a lot of new stuff to figure out and not a lot of time to do that. The car showed up, the team went straight to work, finishing the job from the night before, because there was still a lot of detail that had to happen. They had to finish putting all the sponsor stickers on the car and whatnot, because it was actually for the pre-season photo shoot, so of all things, to have to scramble for to get the car perfect for this photo shoot on track was a ton of effort. In a way, I think it might have helped me because there wasn't really time to stew on all the question marks that there were. It was the first time at a brand new track. Over the years, I guess I've kind of taken it for granted, racing for 12 seasons in a row in the US with IMSA and an SRO. I just had to show up and was at a track that I'd been to a million times before and kind of pick up where he left off. This time was much different. Barcelona was a big one to tackle and to learn in just a few days before the first race, but the team was so professional. There was no chaos, even with all of this last minute stuff, which was outside of their control completely. They just rolled with the punches, got the car ready, and we got on track and had a few great sessions and a good start to the weekend.
Hey Derek, so what day is it today and what's happening?
My days are jumbled around. It's Monday. It's the first day of our ELMS season. And the team did an incredible thrash with the situation, getting the car here from Paul Ricard. It didn't even get here until early this morning. We weren't able to go out in the first session because there was so much that needed to be done. The cars needed to be turned into the new car. They're done with that, so now we're going out for session 2.
Amazing. And what are you excited about? You met Casper for the first time today?
Yes. I now know both my co-drivers. Obviously, we all know Val. He's amazing. Casper seems amazing, too. I think we're going to be a dynamic trio.
Okay.
And I'm just excited to finally get going. This has seemed like such a long build-up since we decided to do this to now being here and pushing the go button. So now we see what happens. New track, new car. Our expectations, of course, were very high. When Val and I decided this is what we were going to do, and we found Casper as our silver driver, He had so much success with Racing Spirit of Le Mans and Aston Martin the season before. We really felt like we were going to show up and just be, fighting for top position, podium everywhere that we went, even though it was all new. And I think for the most part we were, but there was still a giant learning curve. I would say probably the biggest changing moment that affected our race outcome was something that happened in the final practice for me. We were doing a mock qualification run, which meant the car was light on fuel. I basically had an out lap, a flying lap, and an in lap to learn what we needed to learn that session. On my final lap, final turn, I had moved towards the pit lane entry, and as I was coming there, one of the LMP3 cars dove inside of me. I almost hit him. Luckily I didn't, but it blocked me from entering the pits. So I then just got on the brakes as hard as I could. I had a quick couple milliseconds to make a decision of dive into the pits behind him or continue for another lap. The things in my head with continuing for another lap were that I was nearly stopped from trying to avoid him, so I would be dangerously slow at the apex of the final corner if I continued. I also didn't think the car had enough gas to do a whole lap. I didn't want to end up red flagging the session. Ultimately, I decided to dive in late, which meant I had to go in after the cone and cross a solid line, which turns out in Europe to be like a mortal sin. And so instantly, car 59 got called in for a penalty, crossing the white line and entering the pit lane late. And I assumed it would be a easy thing to talk our way out of. I diligently studied the rules. I knew that you're not supposed to do that, but had a good reason and story behind it. But as it turned out, it was extremely illegal, deemed extremely dangerous. They understood the story, appreciated the commentary that came along with it, but still had to do something to penalize us. And that penalty was a 2-minute stop and hold for qualifying, which is already a very short session. So I think that really impacted our qualifying. Didn't end up qualifying as well as we would have liked to. Really, because once we were held, it just put us into a traffic-y position rather than being at the on top of our skis, and because we had been competitive and at the front of the field the whole time so far. So rather than getting to go out with the leaders, where you're with the fast cars, maybe even get lucky enough to get a draft or something, kind of ended up back in a traffic-y situation and just never got a good lap. And then as you start the race towards the back, and it's such a competitive field, moving to the front was quite a challenge, and 6 was the best we could do. So I think without my error in the practice before qualifying, a lot more of those planets could have aligned and allowed us a better result. But ultimately, first European learning lesson down, box checked.
I feel very optimistic. The first event is done and dusted. There were so many firsts, both for me and the team. This is their first time in ELMS with the GT3 Le Mans car. And to finish a 4-hour race, P6, maybe a P5, we got to wait and see what the final penalties and things are. It's not a bad accomplishment. We learned a lot. It was fun. We're moving in the right direction. I can hear the podium happening back there, which I always like to listen to because it motivates me. Maybe we're unrealistic thinking we'd be on there our first event, but we can tell that we'll be fighting here and we'll be seeing some podiums. So I think it's all good. Yeah, it was really challenging in the car today. The first part of the stint was really good when the tires were fresh and before the track started to heat up. We also lost our air conditioning, so it was extremely hot in the car, about 112 degrees Fahrenheit, 44 centigrade. So as far as fatigue on the driver, it was just about as bad or worse as fatigue on the tires. As the setup changed, I found myself over pushing, I lost some ground in the middle stint of the race. Learned a big lesson there. Val got on the radio and told me that my times actually were very competitive before I started trying to chase something that was unrealistic. So learned, and once I did that, I started gaining to the pack again. And so overall, I'm always disappointed when I'm not on the podium, but I think, again, first event, first time in the car in these conditions, these race rules, driving around these other drivers is all good. Not a win, but it was good.
Everything about this experience is new and we're figuring it all out as we go. You know, there's parts that Brooke is extremely excited about, there's parts that I'm excited about, there's most of it that both of us are excited about, but I'm just dying to get all this time at the track. And we have learned that there's so many days at the track, and even though Brooke's excited to see these new things, that we found a little bit of a pattern where she can come with us the first day and then maybe take a time out. And it also makes it a little bit more relaxing for me knowing that she's happy and entertaining herself. She took a half day off and went to the market and got to go eat some amazing empanadas while we were going around the track and do some shopping, and then showed up, and it was, I think that's a good pattern. I think we're hoping to duplicate that on some of these other trips because it's just so hard to take it all in and there's so little time. I feel guilty having her fly halfway around the world and then just come see a hotel room and a racetrack, because that's probably what I would do if I was just there doing this on my own. But she helps me go see other things, and the city of Barcelona was amazing to experience. There's so many great sights. We took a jog out to the beach, we found some amazing restaurants, met some amazing people, and I've just had an awesome time. I can't wait for all the other tracks, all the other cities, all the other countries that we haven't experienced. So we ultimately ended up finishing 6th in Barcelona, which was kind of a letdown. But then as you look back again at all the things that happened, could have happened, first time it's a 4-hour race, you know, simply to finish is one accomplishment, and in the top half of the field was the second accomplishment, and really just checking off that box for our first race. Ultimately felt pretty good. In the moment it was a disappointment because you look at the opportunities that happened along the way and what could have been done differently or what could have changed that would have, you know, helped us be on the podium. You know, you look at that podium that the F1 drivers get to spray champagne on, and you so badly want to be on it, and we didn't get to, and you don't know if you'll have another chance to.
Thank you for following Fastlife TV. Please subscribe for weekly updates about our new content and share us with your friends.